fellow carbon-based bipeds. I am Scott Rose, and you are watching Explosions and Stuff. Today, I'll be reviewing the 2013 film Game of Assassins, starring Warren Cole, Jamie Ray Newman, Dustin Nguyen, and Bei Ling. But first, a word from our sponsors. An overview of the movie? A group of strangers wake up in what appears to be a dungeon with no memory of how they wound up there. It turns out the dungeon is actually a 4-level gauntlet they have to work their way through, and they won't get their freedom until the very end. Unfortunately, each level of the gauntlet will test every fiber of their moral being and may even cost them their lives. The pros of the movie? Well, first of all, the sets in this movie were just absolutely amazing. They were fantastic. It looked like actual stoneworks. They were like in this underground cavern, and it was nice and darkly lit, and a lot of wet stone was around there, and the stone looked like real stone, and each different level of the gauntlet was different, and noticeably different, so you knew exactly where you are. You had a nice perspective of your location within this gauntlet area, because each area felt completely different, completely unique, and it was just fantastic. Like, one of them was like this dungeon, underground fortress type room, like a torture chamber, and the next one was like this underground moat with like trees and like the roots of trees and stuff hanging down, and it was fantastic. And the next one, it was like some library of some sort, and then the one after that was like a freaking like a graveyard in the woods type feel with lots of mist and fog and people hanging and stuff. It was fantastic, and each room was unique. You knew where you were at all times because each room was so unique, and the sets looked so realistic, and you actually felt like you were in these underground caverns going through all of this stuff with the characters. It was amazing. Also, I think this is a very interesting story, and they did a nice job of telling it in an interesting way. In a lot of these, they're being punished for the crimes of their past, and in a lot of these movies, it focuses entirely on the punishment. This movie spent a lot of time paying attention on what they did, what those crimes and those sins were. Turns out every one of them had somehow killed somebody in some way. Not really a spoiler, because, it's called Game of Assassins. So every one of those people had somehow killed somebody. More often than not, it was in self-defense. And they did a great job of showing it. You actually saw them do these things where they killed these people in defense of themselves or things like that. And the fact that they spent so much time just explaining this and paying attention to what they did to be in the position that they're in is unique, and it's something you don't see very often, and I'm so glad they did it that way in this movie. Thirdly, I loved the practical effects, mainly like the blood effects. There were a lot of blood effects, and I'm so happy they didn't use digital blood effects, because that would have just made it look cheap. It would have taken away from the realism and the nice, real feel that this movie had. But they used the real blood effects. They used practical blood effects, and it just looked so real and gritty, and really added to that sense of danger and sense of desperation and grit of this movie. It was fantastic. The blood effects in this movie were glorious. The cons of this movie? Well, first of all, they had to solve these puzzles to get out of the rooms and move on to the next gauntlet, or the next stage of the gauntlet. But these puzzles in these rooms were just so easy to solve. I mean, you got the main hero guy, who's like an expert in all things religious and the occult, and then you got the kind of sidekick hero guy who wanted to be an architect and went to school to be an architect, and he knows all about architectural history and stuff. Between these two guys, they just walk into the different rooms and be like, oh, this is how you solve the puzzle. Fiddle around with some stuff. Boom, door opens. Like, it was too easy for them to solve the puzzles. They needed some red herrings. They needed to fail at solving some puzzles. They needed some sort of a challenge in these puzzles, not just fiddle some stuff around, and then there's the door. It opened. Go through it. On to the next room. Oh, look, solving the puzzle It's like walk into the room, okay, I know how to solve it. We move this stuff around and throw some water over there. Boom, doors open again. Now move on to the next. I mean, they just knew too instantly how to solve these puzzles, how to get through to the next level, and it just didn't work. It was too easy for them. I mean, yeah, there were some hard moral decisions they had to come to, but the actual act of solving the puzzle and figuring out how to proceed to the next levels, it was just too freaking easy, and they went through it too quick. Also, no one seemed to care about the consequences of their actions in this movie. It's like, oh, this person's holding this thing down, and here's the lever I gotta pull to open up that door. Now, if I pull this lever, that metal thing is gonna fall and crush that person pushing the button. Pull the lever. Death. Okay, moving on. Tonight I'm gonna go home and sleep like a baby, even though I just killed that person with a big-ass metal fence. Nobody cared about the consequences of their actions. Oh, I gotta kill this person to open that door, push him to death, go through the door, don't care. Every character in this movie was unlikable. Only one character actually cared about the consequences of his actions, and that was the main hero guy, but they put such an effort and made him so obviously the main hero guy that you couldn't stand him like he was that cookie cutter superhero Hulk Hogan type guy, the over the top good guy, the overtop hero. Like, no one in the world is actually that nice and as good of a person. Everyone has some level of evil, but no, he's like pure nice guy, pure good guy, and you couldn't stand him because of that, or at least I couldn't stand him because he was so obviously supposed to be the good guy, and he had no bad qualities. I couldn't stand him because of that. Make the guy human. He's got to have some sort of a fault. Also, this movie was too short. I mean, seriously, this movie wasn't even an hour and a half long. It was like an hour and 19 minutes. They could have added 10 minutes onto this movie just by making the puzzles more complicated, throwing in some red herrings to the puzzles, and just adding some time there naturally and making the movie better. I mean, I want to say this movie's a slow burn, but in reality, this movie wasn't long enough to be a slow burn. My overall thoughts on the movie? This movie is the most mediocre thing I have ever seen in my life. So I'm going to give it the Zangief. From the writing to the unlikable characters to all the plot holes, it's almost like this movie was an exercise in mediocrity. It doesn't help that the cover art is absolutely misleading, but I'm not going to hold that against it. That's the production company's fault, not the movie's. Really, I have no strong feelings about Game of Assassins one way or the other, so I'm not going to recommend you watch it, but I won't tell you to avoid it either. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like it and subscribe to my channel for new action movie reviews posted every week and top 10 lists posted on the 10th of every month. I'd like to thank the guys from Bloodbath and Beyond for introducing me to this movie, as they reviewed it as a horror movie a while back. There will be a link to their review of it right here, but it does contain some spoilers. If you have any recommendations for things you would like me to cover in the future, please leave them in the comments below and follow us on Twitter at explosions_TV. Thank you and have a nice day.